It's tabletop time.
I'm Jazza.
I'm Rob.
I'm Jen.
I'm Dave.
Welcome to IRONSPIRE, the capital city in Greydale in the land of Sunder. All this and much more exposition will be given to you in this world introduction episode. So basically the way we're treating world intros in this and future campaigns is the world intro is kind of an exposition dump and character intros, but from episode 1 onwards, like reading any novel, you just are going to jump straight into the action. But this will be there for people who really want to know a little bit more of the context about the world, about the characters, and some of the hidden secrets, and also places you can check out where you can sink your teeth into further, which we'll get to in a moment. But first of all, you might notice we have a pretty cool soundtrack. And if you're coming to this video from other episodes, I've worked very hard to curate a soundtrack like we did with a reboot, and we're really proud of them. So I just thought I'd let you know that I'm going to link in the description to the Epidemic Music playlist for IRONSPIRE, so you can check those out if you like the music and you want to use them for your own content or campaigns. Otherwise, we're excited to announce the launch of Cogent 1.3.
Yeah, so a lot of changes in this update, and some of the big spicy ones that people have been asking for a while. The big one is a campaign progression system. So a suggested way of running your campaigns and rewarding skill points and attribute points, and also some cool little things like job milestones and ways to progress your character in multiple ways, which we're using for this campaign. So it'll be a fun way to go through it.
Those of you who don't know, Cogent Roleplay is the system we're using. So like Dungeons & Dragons, but very focused on storytelling, and also mechanics don't get in the way of that. So that's the point of it. And a piece of exciting news is that the character sheets have also been digitally remade and presented to you to use freely on World Anvil, who is the sponsor of this video and this campaign, which I'm very excited about. We're going to dive into that later. I'm going to show you where to find that stuff and how to use it. It's very, very fun and it's all there. But let me first begin by showing you something from a while back. 7 years ago, I came up with the world and races of.
So this has been out for 7 years. It's like
7 years. Wow. This was specifically that picture I drew and the other pictures that I showed you. I wanted to set the tone because I started world building Sunder and IRONSPIRE 7 years ago, but Cogent wasn't a thing yet. But I was playing with the dice pool mechanics and trying to figure out like a world that I wanted to build, and this is what it turned into. I'm really excited to be launching that with you all here today and sharing it for the first time.
Can you go back one more time? I want to see that. I want to see the proto cold. Very cool.
This is the first cold.
And I'm guessing the Thanisians is the first one.
Yeah, that's Thanisians.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. I think my favorite thing about it is the fact that it's like 362 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But if you go back to images, it's like, I might even stream us playing.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, there you go.
And here it is.
This is before Tabletop time existed, before Cogent was made, and it was obviously a dream. So I'm really excited to be realising this with you all. And I think the reason I've been really nervous is because it's been mine and it's been this thing I want to be perfect to share, but I'm really excited to be sharing it now, and I'm really hoping that you all have a lot of fun with me, and that's the whole purpose of it. So I'm really looking forward to doing that with you all. So in doing so, I want to start off by reading you a little world introduction just to set the tone, give you a bit of a vibe for the place and the peoples and the history. 782 years ago, King Grayson banished all competing tribes and clans from the land he claimed as his own. The nation of Greydale was born and has since reigned as the supreme military and trade power over the continent. But those banished fledgling tribes have since survived and even flourished in their various territories. Far to the east, across the glimmering sea, Thanisia has become a land of culture and plenty. It is now a matriarchal society rich with art, wine, and knowledge. It has deep roots throughout other nations, as Thanisians have ventured out offering their service and skills in exchange for what they value above all: knowledge. Far to the west, beyond the desert of the Endel Plains, the empire of Felmore has become rich beyond measure, in large part due to their trade of gold from the Coldish clans of the Mountain Crown to the south. Their cities sprawl with towering structures of sandstone and concrete, and even common Phelan citizens are adorned in silks, gold, and fine Phelan glass. The Phelan have bred their own slave race from the prodigy of the giant culled from the Mountain Crown, a breed they call the Phelan Cool. Handled like livestock, the average adult Felinkel stands between 7 to 8 feet tall and is heavily muscled. They're responsible for building Felmor's greatest structures, sustaining its agricultural efficiency, and are now rumoured to have become the most imposing military force in all of Sunder, held by a leash in the hands of the Phelan Emperor. Greydale is now facing threats to their power from without and from within. The annexed northern region of Greydale, the Barrows, is home to the Barrowan people who have slowly been developing technologies and trade relationships, allowing them to recover independence from their Greyden oppressors. They are now demanding sovereignty. Far south on the outskirts of Greydale stands the Watchwood, headquarters of the cult of thieves called Watchers, who have over the last few hundred years spread throughout Greydale like a plague. Now, there are Watchers in every town and city in Greydale, and some rumoured to be in seats of power seeking to spread their tendrils over new territories and riches. Despite these challenges to their power, Greydale stands strong in large part due to the unrelenting loyalty of its people to their King Rendrick III. A city in which he dwells, IRONSPIRE, named after the colossal structure at its helm, dramatically pierces the sky and casts a shadow over the land every day when the sun rises. That was my dramatic introduction. So, our story begins with a few of these outsiders. So I think it'd be fun before we dive into the world itself, now that you've had a bit of a sampling of the different regions and cultures and attitudes, to introduce our player characters. Maybe let's start off with Dave, who's playing a Barrowan, who is the closest to IRONSPIRE geographically in his origins.
That is
take it from
that
here,
is
sir?
me, as I don't at all try and quickly bring up the map so I can find the map.
Okay, so what you do is you click the link in the description, or you go to itstabletop.com/Sunder, and that will take you to the World Anvil page.
If you're watching on Twitch, you can scroll down and it's got Campaign Sunder with a link to supplementary content.
Beautiful. Love that.
My town that you put on the map isn't on the map.
It is. You need
Isn't
to
it?
zoom in.
Yeah.
No.
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 Okay, let me show you. Let me show you some of the cool bloody features of those. See, here's this home page, right?
Yep.
I go on the bloody map. Here it is. Look at the map, right?
Yep.
See this see the layers? Mm-hmm. So that's just major towns that are ticked here.
Oh.
Right. So you can click
Spice.
small settlements and locations.
My hometown.
It's an interactive, sick ass map. You could also, if you want to, just divide by regions and see where the resources are coming from. You know, that's just little things if you want to like.
That's bloody good, mate.
It's pretty
cool.
Pretty bloody.
My town is there. It's a small settlement.
And was yours Felbrook?
Yeah, it was.
There you go. So tell us about
so
your origins.
now I'll go into me professionally explaining who I am. All right, everyone. I'm Delvin, and I'm from a little town called Felbrook. You see, when I was young, we grew up on the river, living a good life out in the plains. But my family was pushed north by the conflict into the Barrows themselves, where I lived a life of relative poverty and squalor. But I wasn't going to settle on that being my lot. No, I had a natural aptitude for, business. Hard times create clever people, and I found a way to make money buying and selling, eventually becoming a merchant of considerable renown given my years. And that's where you find me, 26 years old and sitting on more money than I ever thought I'd see. But a lot of that money comes from the deserts, and that's where I've been recently. Do you want me to go further?
Love it. Edge of the desert, I'd say, yeah, right here in this trading town, Felton. So you've been back and forthing between Felton and the Barrows in a very high-paid trade relationship, working with various people and quite fruitful, especially given your origins. It's very exciting.
A little bit of that ingenuity out of darkness.
Love it. Welcome.
Thank you.
Delvin. All right, Catalina.
Oh, mine's not going to be nearly as cool as Dave's.
Yeah,
that was really
it's
good.
right.
Either.
Yeah, just dive in, guys. It's
That's
okay.
it.
It's fun.
Okay, let me just bring up my character. So I am playing Catalina, and I am a Thanisian. I don't know where my hometown is. I don't think we came up with one, but
Capital.
it's the capital, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a 26-year-old female. I have a mother that is into the politics in Tunisia. A long time ago, I did have a father, and he was very much into music. He was a bit of a bard. And then, unfortunately, one day he did pass away, and leaving his only possession, which was a harp. And so I carry that around with me all the time. It's my most prized possession. As my job, I am a trade and a barter. I trade in art and knowledge, which is pretty much what Tunisia is known for. Other than that, that's pretty much all she has to say. My pictures, her profile pictures there, as you guys can see.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you want to share a little bit about the circumstances around your father's passing?
Sure. So we get a lot of trade where I'm from, and there's a bit of blood money behind my past. So basically my father was out doing some trade as well. He was on a ship and it got boarded by the watch. And unfortunately he was killed along with a bunch of other people. And we in return got a lot of our treasure and knowledge as well. But unfortunately
You lost your father.
they were perished, yeah. So, yeah.
Bit sad.
A little bit sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got blood money, is that?
Yeah.
That's a little feature in the new
It
Trojan
is.
rules.
It is. It's a
Quirks
quirk
of
of wealth. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got one yourself,
I
sir?
do. I haven't talked about that.
No, do you want to mention it?
Yes. Delvin's got a bit of a soft spot. I have a patron. Well, I am a patron of the arts. My mother, she's an artist, and she's good, but damn, there's no market for it. So whenever things get a bit tight around the home, I grease the wheels of industry and make sure someone's after a portrait so her art can get appreciated where it should be.
That's really cool. It's the quirks of wealth was actually Dave's suggestion for the next Cogent update, which basically enables a D20 system to roll for the chance to, in exchange for an extra commerce point. So both of you are more wealthy than average, but they rolled and they were their quirks of their wealth. David has a patron and Jen has acquired her money through blood money, which means, so it's a fun way to just add more character, motivation and story behind the build that you create.
Yeah.
I think before we move on from, I wanted to wrap up a little bit about diving into that a little bit because your passions are a little not allowed in Tunisian culture.
Yeah, so it's against the law, I would say, or just kind of
very frowned upon.
Very frowned upon to for a female to pursue the arts. They're very much more have strong positions, and the males typically go with the more sort of what we would claim as the more feminine positions. But yeah, so having a instrument on me is probably something I want to keep a bit secret, but we'll explore that throughout the roleplay. I also wanted to mention as well that Catalina has an extreme prejudice to cultures that demoralize females. So she's very much a feminist and is strong in the belief of equality for all, not. So she's kind of, even in her own culture, she finds it a little bit strange.
Yeah, it's the Phoenician default, especially with the powerful, is sort of the extreme to the other extent. Where in a lot of other cultures, especially the Coldish, it's brutally unequal against females, but also in high Phoenician society, basically it's unfair in a similarly opposite direction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In Phoenicia, men don't have the same opportunities women do, and women are seen as the leaders and teachers. So, but you want to be an artist.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a reason that she left as well, to go trade, explore, and to kind of broaden her horizons a bit, to see. She knows she can't change the world, but if she can start making things a little bit better, then that's good for her as well. So,
love it.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Catalina. Brick. We have a Phelan called in our party. Why don't you take us through some of your origin, your story, your character and personality and motivations?
I am Brick.
I think that about does it. Welcome, Brick, to the party.
I am Phelan Cold Warrior. My life has been devoid of the pleasures of normal livelihoods. I am warrior. I fight, I protect, and well, that's it. So I'm excited to explore the world and its vices, and experience with it, and the viewers.
Love it. Welcome. I like that voice modulator is perfect. But I think like maybe to dive a little deeper, let's do it out of character.
Okay.
But yeah, tell us a little bit about. I think it might be good to first introduce that Brick will be joining the party in episode 1. We're actually going to role play in episode 0. Technically today in stream when we open this up, but that'll be available to patrons only. So those of you who follow us on Patreon, you can see our basically practice run, but also our way that some of our characters first meet and also get to experience being the characters for the first time. So we can do episode 1.
I'm so glad we're playing today. I was thinking please, we have to play
Yeah,
today.
yeah. I'm pumped. Yeah, so we'll do that. But I think it also is sort of worth mentioning that the view to experience the world isn't something that you necessarily have at the start of the campaign.
No, that's true. As I was saying, he's lived not a sheltered life.
Restricted
life. He's been used as a tool, and this is probably the first opportunity for him to branch out and explore the world of Sunder and I guess IRONSPIRE.
Do you want to explain Brick?
I love
the name.
Brick. He's property. He doesn't have a name. Brick is a nickname he was given because he's about as useless as a brick by itself. At least, like that's the meaning of it. Whether or not it's true, I mean, I guess it's in comparison to the other Phelan Cole that he would have been related to and worked with.
Yeah.
I just love the idea that you said he's sheltered, and it's like a very different concept of shelter. It's like, you've never like slept in a comfortable bed, but you're nice and sheltered. Seen a man's head get caved in? Sure, many times. Yeah, we were obviously.
But he's lived a very innocent, quiet life.
It's very sheltered. We make sure he hasn't eaten like flavor before.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. Yeah, that about sums it up.
Yeah, I'm really excited to play him. To be honest, I think it's going to be a nice little challenge.
I'm really excited too about the party dynamic because I think with Catalina and Brick being very much outsiders and with Delvin being Barrowan, so technically more of an outsider than most within Greydale, I'm excited for the experience of everyone sort of feeling their way through the world a bit together with our viewers, and I'm excited to see where that leads.
I'm excited to watch a Greydale citizen wet their drawers when I walk in with Brick.
I'm
looking forward to being cheeky constantly. My whole character's just basically cheek and nothing behind it.
I do not wish to save you again.
So you will have noticed that we've been flicking around in this little map here, which I'm very excited to dive into a little bit more detail. World Anvil has sponsored our campaign. I'm so excited about this. I actually approached them first because I had started building this whole campaign in World Anvil, and the more I dived into it, the more I had to work with. And every tool I learnt, there were like 5 more that enabled me to co-link and then create more. So when you go to the Sunder homepage, this is what you are greeted with, and this is going to be built out more and more and more. Basically, I started off with the timelines. So that was the first feature. I was like, I had a timeline that was just like a badly put together like Google Docs thing, but I knew there were like different cultures. So I wanted a timeline for different cultures, and when they interacted, it was really messy. Whereas here, I have one beautiful timeline for the history of Sunder, which presents all of the timelines together. So you can read the whole history and chronology of the entire continent if you have time and will to, or if you're particularly interested in one culture, let's say the Barrows, you can click on that and it has an article and it has its own timeline as well. So if I go to the Sunder homepage, down to the timelines, I can go to the Barrows and it goes to the Barrowan timeline. All of these are in that master timeline, but it's just a good way to be able to, if you want to learn a bit more about where one of the characters came from, you can do that to your heart's content. They also now officially support Cogent roleplay character sheets. So let me show you this actually. If I go to a guide to Sunder in my world codex, player options, playable races. And look at this, I got different character templates. Phoenician player template, click, oh my God. So this is I freaking love this
Love
art.
the art so much.
This is by Alicia Lowry, who's done a lot of the character art commissions and the that landscape on the homepage. Basically, you can really sink your teeth into this. If anyone wants to play in Sunder or IRONSPIRE, please be my guest. That I'm making this to share, so please have fun, play with your friends. And to facilitate that, if you click on View on a character sheet, and you can open the character sheet. If you scroll down, you can see stat block type cogent roleplaying. Click on that, and you can scroll through all of the community-made cogent roleplay character sheets. So if you make them, you can share them and make them public. But I've also made a whole bunch I haven't even put in the public listed thing yet. So there's all the, like, you could be a Phoenician teacher, there's artist, musician, and these are basic templates that you can add your character points on top of just to act as a guide. I've been a little bit obsessive about this, and I've had a lot of fun. So please feel free to have a bit of fun yourself. It really does let you sink your teeth into everything. And not only for me as a game maker for this campaign, for you as viewers, you can go dive into it, but also for players, they all have their character sheets. We can share messages and images as we play. It's really, really cool. There's article making and linking. So for example, I've got Phoenician template here, and then I've got sub-listed articles, Phoenician bonus vocations. So everything can be super interconnected, which I really love. I am going to have so much fun when I have time, which I never have, but I still can't arm myself, building out things like the World Encyclopedia. If I go to the fauna and flora and check out the animals, I got one first listing here. This is the Dracow, the desert creature of Felmore.
There's art for it?
Yeah, this is the Dracow. I commissioned that artwork.
It looks tasty.
That's so cool.
It's very cool. So their horns and spikes are used in concrete and Phelan glass recipes. Something else I need to jump in on and show you guys is the storyteller screen, which I can't really show you guys much of because it's a little bit more of the secret side of thing. But I've got character portraits. I can click those and bring up profiles. Without showing much, I can show you that I can plan a lot and quickly access it, quickly archive it. If I want to make a character super quickly, I can quickly type up a character name and blah, blah, blah. If you come across someone, I improvise and save it so that later when you're like, hey, that town guard we spoke to for 3 seconds 2 episodes ago, what was their name again? I can be like, ha, I remember it. I'll have to figure out their accent again, but
I'm gonna get you to do that.
Don't you? Crap, I've opened up the gates. So anyways, I'm obviously getting carried away with this and having so much fun, and I really hope my players enjoy being in it, but also you as viewers enjoy viewing it, listening to it, and also diving into it. If you want to build a world, go check out World Anvil. They actually have a deal for you. It's their highest level of discount is 40% off of all 12-month memberships. So you can sign up for free, and you can check out the character sheets, you can join a campaign and explore all of their content. But if you want to use their world builder or really sink your teeth in some of the features, 40% off of all 12-month memberships is available if you go to worldanvil.com/IRONSPIRE to make use of that. Use the code IRONSPIRE to claim 40% off.
Awesome.
Amazing.
That's
Very, very
super cool.
exciting. I'm excited for the foundations that's been laid, but I'm really excited that this feels like the start of a world we're all going to build together. Huge thank you, World Anvil, worldanvil.com/IRONSPIRE to go check that out in more detail. So I think that covers a pretty solid foundation. I think I'm just going to leave that door open now for the rest of it, of this video / interaction. We're going to want to jump in episode 0 pretty soon, I reckon.
I think we should do some out of character, just like basic character, we didn't describe our characters visually and stuff like that. It's probably worth doing.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Do you want to lead the way? We'll go clockwise again.
Delvin is, you can see his portrait. That's a pretty good visual. He's inspired by Jim from The Office. He's about 6'2", he's a big, friendly-looking guy. He wears lots of merchanty, baggy, quilted clothing. He seems a little bit self-conscious about maybe his appearance, because he's just a pretty average guy. He likes to wear comfortable trading clothes, and otherwise he travels light. He often goes with a cart, but he doesn't have a big adventuring rucksack with bed rolls. Why would you stay in a tavern? Who goes camping? What are you, an animal? He's very much that kind of guy. Overly tries to be friendly to people. So he's a little bit unusual in that he's wealthy, but because he's come from hardship, he sees hardship in other people, and where he can, we'll try and change that.
I love that.
Because I have a second quirk of wealth as well, though.
Yes.
Which is an area where I won't compromise, and that is basically I expect the best from something, and the thing I randomly rolled for that was kind of like eating, and I'm extending that a little bit to like standard of living.
Yeah.
So I do not want to go back to the caves. Like I scratched and clawed my ways out of the Barrows.
So you won't settle for less than first class, basically.
Yeah, and first class, I'm not going to have a big cry. Like Delvin's not going to have a cry if it's not first class, but it's got to be first class relative to what's available.
Yeah.
So even in a small town, I'll stay in the tavern, not the stable.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to be like, oh, this bed isn't plush, because even a bed is decent.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be like, oh, let's save some coin and sleep in a tent. I'll be like, there's a tavern right there, or I'm going to go talk to the mayor and see if I can.
If it's Breath of the Wild, it's always that expensive bed option.
Yeah,
that no one
every
takes.
time. If the option's there, I'll take the first class option.
Yeah.
And I won't I'll definitely turn my nose up at the worst option of everything, and I'll try and live better.
Love it. Great. All right, Catalina, give us a visual description and maybe a little bit about your habits and personalities and stuff.
Sure. So Catalina, she was inspired by a Final Fantasy character called Fang. She's very tanned, wears a lot of like loose clothing, which is very typical in where she's from. Wears this beautiful purple, like royal purple sash. But she's also not super, like she doesn't wear a lot of jewelry or anything. She's kind of very modest. And just kind of tries to blend in. She doesn't want to stand out too much while in her travels. She's very much a protector as well. So she's happy to get her hands dirty. She's not too princey. She probably would be quite happy camping out or roughing it up. She doesn't mind too much if that's an option. But same sort of deal as well. She'll probably want to sleep in a tavern, but either way, she's not going to say no to sleeping out. She's also has a couple of skills in small hand weaponry, because she's good at keeping on her toes. So because she's a barter and a trader, she's not too... She's happy to get her hands dirty if she needs to.
I was going to ask you actually, because I didn't get a chance to see your final character sheet. Did you have as many points in your trading skill?
So what I did in the end was I put that trade barter vocation up to 3.
Yeah.
Art was 2 and small weapon is 2.
Okay, cool.
So I make them equal. So she is just as knowledgeable about art and other stuff. I'll put something else there I forgot what it was. As she is using a small weapon. So she's
That's
quite happy
so funny.
to... Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so she needs to cut and run, then she'll do it. It's all
always been very
good.
practical and much more connected, I guess, than
Yeah.
she was raised to be told to be. You
Exactly.
know. Yeah.
As a Thanisian politician, though, she does have -1 in survival, so we'll see how she goes. But she thinks she knows how to survive in the desert, but maybe might need a hand
That's
every
awesome.
now and then.
That might also be a good point to touch on, something that people who have been using Cogent may not be familiar with the new update. What we've done is we've folded proficiencies into a subset as they're now called vocational skills, and they're sort of nested within vocations. So the way it works is, Jen, you have 3 points in your vocation, which is called
Trade barter.
trade barter. So you can decide for it to be a profession. It could be baker or guard. And then inside that you nest your combat abilities, or so your combat ability of knife, you've learnt to use that in protecting yourself on the road and all this stuff.
Yep.
So basically, the way that works is that the vocation is the cap. The more points you have in the vocation, the more points you can have in the skills inside of it. And then those are the skills that you do checks with, like a skill check. But the vocation skills are still assist skills. Hope that clears things up for people who are interested.
For
in your
example,
update.
a vocation baker could use their vocation to assist in a perception check if it was to perceive the scent of baked
Gingerbread.
goods.
Useful.
I love it.
Niche, but useful.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, and maybe a little bit about your musicianship.
How much do we want to, out of like in this sort of talk, do you just want to talk about magic and stuff?
I think a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Catalina has the ability to use magic, which is at this point in time, she doesn't know that it's magic. She's not sure what it is. For her, it's the harp that she has, and it's the spirit of her father, and she uses the harp every day and she tunes to it but she just thinks that that's her dad, pretty much. And whenever these good things happen because of her playing her harp or because it's with her, is purely either coincidental or she just knows it's her dad.
Yeah.
So to make that connection hasn't quite happened yet because she's just unaware of it or she just doesn't think much of it.
Yeah. I do think, I think it's just worth touching on because roles will be introduced relatively early and it might get confusing if we're trying to be too mysterious about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think the way you wanted your character sort of to build up into that was to have essentially rituals of like the way you play every day, and it's also this connected thing.
Yeah, exactly. So she has to, I mentioned this a couple of sessions ago, but every morning she does spend like a good half an hour to an hour tuning and taking care of it and making sure it looks all nice and pristine and playing with it and everything. So she needs to do that. It's like a part of her, like her ability, like she needs to do it.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. And then finally?
Brick. So Brick is a very large. She's 6'11" is what I have, but I'm not sure if we settled on a specific height. But 6'11".
Isn't that it's like short for a Phelan Ghoul.
Yep. 2.5 foot wide at the shoulders. So very big, very bulky. Very common to the Phelan. Well, not very common. It's pretty much every Phelan Cold has those deep black glasses to protect their irises because they are quite sensitive. Having being a half-breed of people that live in capes for their entire lives.
That's it might be worth mentioning too that those glasses are other cultures don't know how to produce Phelan glass. Yeah, and it's one of the ways that the Phelan have sort of utilized and been able to control. I think their culture grew out, especially with things like the Dracow that I showed that picture of earlier, these big beastly desert creatures that they had cultivated and bred far before they came across the Coldish and started getting into the human slave trade. Yeah. They knew how to wrangle big beasts. So all of a sudden there comes this like human breed, so to speak, that they transformed to their uses as far as guards and city builders, but keep them very oppressed. And one of the ways they do that is to control them through their reliance through using Phelan glasses. Yeah. Because they're caved, the Phelan Cold are coldish essentially, meaning they have evolved through some of the aid of sort of magical forces in the world to survive in these deep mountain caves that are very hot and very dark. So high resistance to heat, very perceptive in the dark, quite easily blinded by light. So those glasses sort of normalize it. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Cool.
Now, as a general Phelan Coldish slave, he would have been trained in a variety of things, be it as a workhorse or as a warrior. We've specified in this that Brick is a bodyguard, or would have been trained as a bodyguard or a warrior, which means he's got an affinity for large and reach weapons and some skills in crowd control under his vocation.
Love it.
Yeah. I don't know what else.
Cool. Weapon, did we?
I haven't decided on one yet.
We can decide it now. I think we need to pick it before episode 0. So we were having a discussion that there's this coldish, like when I say, to avoid confusion, when I say cold or coldish, I'm talking about the beasts in the mountains. Phelan Cole or Cole are the sort of slave race to the Phelan. So the Coldish use something called a Coldish pick, which is a huge steel, giant, double-sided pick thing. And Rob was like, I want one of those. And at first I was like, oh, okay. But no, actually, realistically, the Phelan don't like anything that is too beasty. Yeah, which is actually why they dress the Phelan Cole in silks and colours and all this stuff so that they look fairly regal, as their protectors.
How about like I don't want to say pole arm, like a
halberd or like a. It's like a pole hammer or.
Is a Coldish pick is a 2-headed pick, right? And they furiously mine and kill really fast. I know it's epic and cool. All I can picture is the lightsaber kid. Making me like very. I'm just watching a cool movie.
Yeah. Can someone please animate a Coldish giant in the same moves as the lightsaber kid? That would be great. Yeah. We'd appreciate that.
Almost like a staff with a blade on the end. But I think stylistically, I'm thinking because I'm looking at the Phelan.
What does a Phelan honor guard wield?
Swords.
Okay.
I can see it in their character art.
Phelan.
Yeah. So would
Phelan don't
I can
wield.
I can see a
typically.
sword.
So, but you mean Phelan Cole?
No, I mean, surely there's like honor guard of the leaders, like
Phelan Cold.
So this
all of them. So they trust them that implicitly.
They control them that effectively.
that
is how I
there's
put it.
no Phelan at all that are like.
It's uncanny how good they are at corralling these people and beasts like animals, like manipulative and there is no question.
Okay.
It's like super cult, like drink the Kool-Aid level control. Like,
Okay.
wow.
I was thinking
just
more
just
like
as the baseline. Like you're an outlier.
Cold-ish.
Playing a Phelan Cold is like
Yeah.
an outlier. But if an actual Phelan Cold is basically a mindless slave.
like a 6-foot pole with a flame-shaped blade at the tip.
That sounds cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's what I was
thought.
hoping, that there'd be like a position where it's more of like an honor. It's not actually a realistic art. And then I was like, use whatever they wield.
Yeah, no, everyone in power is in power because they have money and control.
Okay.
And their whole culture is built around all of that. They don't like combat. They're not combatants. That's brutish.
And a shield.
They leave the brutish things to the brutes, but they control the brutes. So they're very good at controlling the brutes.
A shield?
If you have a reach weapon,
Think like Spartan.
I'm gonna say
They've got
no.
their spear in there. Hold on.
I'm going to say no.
Oh.
Especially because to the Phelan, the Phelan Cole are expendable. It's like, you know.
Okay.
But it's never been a problem. Like, these things need to defend themselves. Like, you're a
Okay.
monster. You're
That's fine.
huge.
That's fine. Just the spear with the weird flame-shaped blade
A
at the
tower
top.
shield
That
would
way I've
look
got
like cute.
got a
It's
bit
sort
of
of
stab, bit of slash.
cool.
You can always get one later.
So big sword on a stick. Kind
I
of.
want to draw what I have in mind, but I can't draw.
We'll get some art done. It'll be cool. All right. I think
I hope I don't have to get in a fight. I've got this knife I use for peeling apples.
I think that's sort of that's
Wait.
where
I'm being stupid. I've got brick.
you've got a knife.
I've
You've
got
got a hammer, a walking hammer.
I don't fight with a blade. I fight with bricks. Oh, you don't want to see what that means, I can promise you. The Kool-Aid guy wall explodes
What
where
have
it
I
comes
told you
through.
about getting in trouble, Delvin?
I can't help but need to show the Coldish. So freaking cool, especially the character art. My God.
Hey.
That's what the Coldish fic looks like. That's what the Coldish mountain people look like who aren't really part of this.
I think
Like,
my favorite
you
thing
can't see
about
them
that
really.
is that it doesn't look too big in his hands, but that thing is like 5 foot tall.
Tall. If that was upright,
Yeah.
that's like 6.5 for sure.
Love it.
Yeah, it's freaking huge. You wouldn't be able to pick. You'd have to have I think you have to have 2 strength to hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's insane. They're crazy. Anyway, that wraps up all the character intros. I think basically on the tail end of this, I'm just happy to open it up to basically setting up where episode 0 is going to start off, not episode 1, because we're going to lead into episode 0 from here. And if we have any questions about the world building or how we got up to there, now is the time to give that some clarification. We can cross some T's and dot some I's together before we jump into some role play, which is happening today. What the hell?
Excited.
Oh my God. Yeah. So maybe bringing up that world map that I had opened a second ago might be helpful.
My bottom lip is intact for now. I am missing an ear though.
Yeah, yeah.
Where did it go?
Well, I assume some desert creature ate it after it fell off.
What do you mean it fell off?
Well, it was cut off.
Oh, that makes him.
There was no use putting it back on.
Yeah, so just as a bit of an orientation, this is the geographic stuff that everyone in Sunder would understand. In the middle here is Greydale, the center of the universe in their eyes. It's the most bountiful place in the whole continent and has been the center of trade, but now there's a lot of independent trade and power mongering sort of happening and people are getting more and more powerful. Up north in the Barrows, they are more connected with Phoenicia and Felmore than Greydale are, and they're sort of fighting over that connection. The Barrows and the Barrowan people are very clever when it comes to engineering. There are surface and subsurface dwelling people. They have some surface cities and towns, but they're actually mainly in tunnels and caverns that they've dug out in the cold northern mountains. They have various mining inventions, which are very clever, that Phoenicians are studying, especially because in Phoenicia, they're starting to utilize some of that engineering knowledge and archive it. There is this passage of sea between IRONSPIRE and Phoenicia's capital, Whitetop, which is a very common trade route. It's called the Glimmering Sea, because a long time ago, and this is all in the timeline, I'll give you the TLDR, the people who were banished from Great Owl were sort of wandered off. This batch went into the woods, and then they subdivided, and the Phoenicians ended up here. But there was sort of like this, you know, they hadn't seen each other for hundreds and hundreds of years until eventually when Whitetop was built, which is a city of white sheets and glimmering things. Every morning when the sun would rise, it would reflect on these sheets and make the sea glimmer and spark like almost blinding light for a period of time every day, which eventually was explored, and the Prodigal Passage across the Glimmering Sea was established, and trade with Phoenicia was established. So that's a fun sort of the prodigal return of Phoenicia to IRONSPIRE many hundreds of years later after they were banished. But it's worth mentioning that because the Watchwood down here is where the Watchers often sail out and intercept those trade routes, and they're very good at stealing, which is what happened
And killing
to
people's
poor
fathers,
Catalina's
apparently.
father. Yeah.
How dare they?
They were intercepted, and it's when Great Owl trades, they're aware that it's almost a 50-50 as to whether they're going to get the stuff or not. It's that bad.
I have a very quick question.
Yes.
Could you describe the architecture for the different capitals?
Great question.
Because I'd like to know if one's more medieval or one's more. I would imagine Phoenicia is more Greek.
Very Mediterranean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So like that sort of layered cities, very stone, very built around vineyards and all that stuff. But also their linens are a big part of their export and pride, and their paper. But specifically their white linens are the purest that can be found. So, which is why Whitetop is a point of pride, because it's really durable and strong, and they can keep it clean somehow, even though it's exposed to weather and stuff. So, very, very, very Mediterranean looking.
And then IRONSPIRE and the Barrows.
IRONSPIRE is your typical sort of like King's Landing-esque, except for, I think the thing to note about IRONSPIRE is it's massive. It's like 3 capitals surrounding a capital. IRONSPIRE itself is a very hard to get into place. Even the wealthy traders and blah, 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 they sort of are on these outskirt city ports. So if you look around here, we've got the Bartwell Keep, which is more the military district. We have the Commons, which is more the trade district, and then Caripas, which is sort of the travel district, and Messengers. And IRONSPIRE capital proper is far more exclusive. And the spire is massive. It's massive. It's hard to even describe, but you can see it from all the way on the other side of the land, and even to when you start crossing the mountain, it's like it pierces the horizon, and anyone who's gotten close to it, it feels like it's closer than it is. It's so bloody big.
Does that mean you have a general sense of direction as well? If you can tell, like in that area, if you're like, oh, cool, the spire's to my left, therefore I know I'm facing.
I think, that's a very common way of seeing things. Especially, I think it probably doesn't help the Graydon sense of superiority and being the center of the universe, because it's like this pinpoint of like, this is the center of everything that matters. So they actually act that way as well. The further out from IRONSPIRE you are, the more casual people are about the rules, but actually the following and loyalty to the king is more and more fanatical and, I guess, overseen the closer you get to the spire.
They were a bit jealous of the shining Phoenician city, so they made themselves a little bit of a compensation tower to make up for it.
100%. It's a giant penis. The guards, there are 3 types of guards. There's the Grey Guard, the Iron Guard, and the Spire Guard. And their helmets get more pointy the more special they are. So they're commonly referred to as pricks by people who don't like them, but they're careful to not be overheard. It is sort of like an inside joke. You would never be heard by a Graydon saying out loud that they're dickheads.
Story goes in the Barrows that the Graydons thought the Phoenicians were flashing them, so they showed them right back. Just making up canon for your
I
world.
love it. I love it. So if I go back out to the Sunder world to continue your question, that was a really cool question, by the way. By the way, if anyone wants to make fan art, just putting it in the usual places is amazing. But it also is worth keeping in mind that everyone I've commissioned fan art from started off contributing community fan art. I really keep my eye out for, and not just like this campaign, and other campaigns, people have different styles. Sometimes things are more environmental or futuristic or whatever. And yeah, we sort of catalogue that stuff because we love to commission. So yeah, if you feel like making fan art, just keep that in mind, because we keep an eye out for quality. So down in the Watchwood, it's very much an extreme version of Robin Hood and his Merry Men's cities. There's sort of treetop, very much suspended and more built up than you could imagine, but also very much built up out of stolen and commandeered goods. So cities built out of like half-sunken boats suspended in the treetops and all this stuff with it, anyway. Up north in the Barrowlands, the cities are very much, the surface dwelling cities are very similar to Graydon towns, just a bit smaller, I guess. But then the cities in the mountains are fairly large and cavernous. Think, what's that lost in Syria, that city carved out of the mountains? It was in Indiana Jones. The one.
Petra,
thank you. Yeah. That, sort of dug into the mountains themselves and going in and quite cavernous. Not too much like dwarves, but a little bit like dwarves.
And snowy, I'd imagine.
The mountains themselves are extremely cold and frozen, and inside the mountains are quite cold, but they figure out their own heating systems, and they live primarily, especially initially, off of bats. That was their primary food source.
Got some bad news, guys.
And clothes, bat capes. Then across the desert, not finally, I should say, because we have the Coldish, but we won't go deep into that. Felmore's capital, Earthend, is at the end of the earth and is across a very hard-to-cross desert. And is very large in terms of sandstone structures. It has exponentially grown in size in the last 100 or 200 years since the Coldish have been turned into labourers, basically. So think like square pyramids and giant desert-dwelling buildings, very stone carving, sandstone, and concrete is one of their greatest inventions. They have a few very good inventions, Phelan glass, and then concrete is the other really reputable, hard to replicate one. And it's because in large part of the mix of some of the materials they get from the animals and plant life that are sort of more, located in the area. Last but not least, the Coldish. There's little known about them. It's more that they're whispered about. The Mountain Crown, or the Coldish Crown as it's known, these three peaks off in the distance, sort of looms in the distance behind everyone. Everyone's terrified of the Coldish, but they haven't really emerged or caused any trouble, except there have been whispers and rumours of conflict between Felmore and the Cold. But that's all the layperson knows.
Cool.
I would venture a guess that Brick probably knows a little more, but not a lot more. But they don't like each other at all.
We are the weaker version.
Yeah. I think that's also a point to mention in wrapping it all up is I think one of the core running themes of this whole world and campaign is all of these cultures have very strong cultures of control and fear of the outsiders, control from within, of their citizens, of resources, and fear mongering of outsiders and wanting what they have, which is power or wealth.
The inverse, right, a little bit.
In
Because
what way?
the Barrowan and the Phelan Cold are more the oppressed than the oppressor.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
Obviously, there'd be groups within them that are blah, blah, blah.
That's a great point, yeah.
The Barrowan are kind of have been controlled by Graydon for a very long
Watches the
time.
Nisia, IRONSPIRE, Felmore, very much about power and control. And then there are those who are more controlled than seeking control. So actually more seeking freedom. The Barrowans are actively rebelling and trying to seek autonomy, where the Phelan Cola are basically programmed and not as aware of that. But there are some more and more outliers, especially as the slave trade reaches the Barrows.
For now,
So-
Brick. You don't have to be a slave forever, my friend.
How tall is IRONSPIRE?
Huge, very tall.
How tall?
Tall enough to fit your question. Now shut up.
Because I have 11 tabs open working out how long a shadow can cast depending on an item, and if it reaches to Windermere, which is like 140 kilometres away, this tower has to be several kilometres tall,
It's
which would make it taller than any tower currently.
it's
How tall's
magically
Sauron's tower?
tall.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If you look at the world landscape
Maybe the
and
sun's
you look at the
brighter.
size of the spire and the
Yeah.
distance between towns, I think that answers your question.
Okay.
It is kilometers.
What?
I'm pumped. I'm pumped to jump into episode 0 with you guys, which we're going to do immediately. But for those of you who are watching this, it will be available to our patrons a few days after this comes out on the main channel. So feel free to follow us on Patreon for many exciting exclusives and opportunities to create characters with us in various role-playing games, vote on one-shots, and loads more. But most importantly, your support means the world to us. It enables us to do really cool stuff, and hopefully this video has given you a glimpse as to how we're aggressively utilizing that to give back to you as much as we can. Thank you for watching. We look forward to seeing you in the story and in chapter 1 or chapter 0 if you're going to be there. And I guess until then, we'll see you later.
Bye.